We good? We good? Hey Google, turn on the kitchen LED strip.
Alright, turning on kitchen LED strip.
Thanks, mate. What's up, Australia? Today we're talking about the Canon C70 Cinema Camera, and it was announced yesterday, the 24th of October in 2020. And I will just start off by saying that this video is not a hands-on. I do not have the product with me, but I can, however, give you a eyes-on, a bit of a digital reproduction of what it might look like if the camera was here. So keep your eyes fixed on this point right here. Ready? Oh! There it is. My dog barked, he was so surprised. There it is. And that's as physical as it's gonna get. Unfortunately, I don't have the C70 with me today, but I do wanna run through some of the specs, some of the features, and also give my thoughts on why I think a camera like this, like the C70, is pretty exciting for somebody in my industry as a freelance videographer. So let's get into it. Let's start with some hard specs. First of all, it's the first cinema camera with their RF mount. So same mount as the R, the R5 and the R6. It's a Super 35mm sensor, inbuilt ND filters, 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10 stops. Dual SD card slot, 16 stops of dynamic range, CMOS dual pixel autofocus up to 4K 120 frames per second at HQ 4.22, which is very exciting. And then it also does 180 frames a second as its max frame rate, but that's at a 2K crop. Let's talk about the size of this thing, because I think that's the most interesting part about a camera like this. In terms of the features and the specs, yes, Canon has cameras that do that, but in such a small form factor, this is the first one that we've seen. From the front, it doesn't look that different from a 1DX, right? But turn that sucker on its side, and that's a thick boy. That's a thick boy, and that's because like the ND filters are in there, and you've got to have all those ports on the side, all those professional grade ports, the SDI and the XLR mini jacks and the full size HDMI. A really good selection of ins and outs on the left-hand side of the camera, and obviously that's adding to the chunk of that thing, but that's all right. In terms of price, C70 is available for pre-order, I think in the US. I haven't found a link in Australia yet, but it's available for pre-order for $5,500 US, which roughly translates to 7.5 grand here in Australia. And that puts the C70 between the C100 Mark II and the C200 in terms of price, and even comparing the specs, probably sits right in there. Alongside the C70, Canon's also announced a new EF to RF lens mount adapter, which is very exciting. So I have an EOS R and I have an adapter to adapt from R mount to EF mount, so that I can use my RF lenses on my EOS R. The really exciting thing about this EF to RF adapter is that not only can it adapt your EF lenses to your R body, but it also it's a speed booster. So it's gonna give you access to shoot full frame content on the C70, even though it's a 35mm sensor because it's a speed booster. But it also has one extra stop of light transmission coming through when you're using that adapter too. So any f4 lenses would effectively be seen as an f2.8 and be letting the same amount of light in, which is very cool. As far as I can tell, if you do have one of the already existing EF to RF lens mount adapters, there's no reason that they shouldn't work on the C70. So even if you have the normal one that doesn't have a speed booster in it, or you have the ND filter or the control ring adapter, should be no reason why they will not adapt to the C70 when that comes out as well. So you can still use that lens mount adapter instead of getting the speed booster if that's not an option. I think the main thing that's really exciting about the C70 is the form factor. So I know sometimes camera size doesn't really matter depending on what work you're doing, but to be able to fit such a wide range of features into a form factor so small, ND filters, flippy screen, great battery life. They use the same batteries as the C200, the C300 and the C500. It really feels like Canon's designed this camera to give you the same cinema experience that you'd get with something like the C500, but in a smaller form factor. When I first saw this camera, I immediately thought, oh wow, this is just a really expensive version of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K. But the more I thought about it, they're really two different beasts. While they do share a lot of the same features, and you can basically pick the Cinema 6K up for about 3,000 Australian dollars at the moment. There is some notable differences in between them when it comes to dynamic range and built-in NDs, frame rates. The Pocket Cinema only does 60 frames a second at 4K, and it does 6K at 50 frames a second, whereas the C70 does 120 frames a second at 4K, and that's including audio and dual pixel autofocus. No autofocus on the Cinema 6K, so there's a lot of advantages in the C70, and I guess that's shown by the price. In terms of my workflow, I can't see myself investing in a C70 anytime soon, just because it's a little bit out of my price range for the time being, but I would like to hire one when they come available and give it a spin, go do a shoot with it, get some really nice footage. I think that would be really cool to do. If I do that, I'll be sure to make a video about it because it will be exciting for me and it might be exciting for you. That's it for today. Didn't want to be a super long video, just wanted to share my thoughts and my opinions on the new Canon C70 Cinema Camera and run you through some of the specs I think are quite cool to fit in such a little thick boy form factor. Looking forward to getting my hands on it eventually one day. Until then, looking forward to continuing to shoot with my EOS R. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button so that when I release more content, you'll be the first to see it. And also, let me know in the comments below what you think is the best feature about this Canon C70 Cinema Camera. All right. Catch you later. Have a great day.
First,